Are women being left behind in this tech cycle, this revolution or evolution? Today, I have an amazing guest with us, Cortney Harding, who is going to speak with us about this AI gender gap. First of all, let me welcome you, Cortney. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me.
And for our guest, Cortney is an Emmy nominee. She builds AI and spatial projects. She's working with institutional clients like Walmart and Accenture. And Cortney, I was really impressed with a series of articles that you're just starting to put out there addressing this AI gender gap. I mean, one thing that I know from different surveys and reports is that just women are using AI much less than men, in the order of, I don't know, 10%, 20%, I guess it depends. And you brought in your article, your recent article, an example that I'd like to ask you to elaborate on that really shows how this is manifesting itself.
Yeah, I mean, the numbers vary, but we do know that women use AI much less than men do at this point. And that's going to create real issues further down the road if women are left behind in terms of using this technology that's going to be revolutionary and game changing. And like you said, it's the first in a series, and we're going to be examining different ways that women and caregivers can use AI, and really anyone can use AI to benefit themselves. And the first example that I kind of honed in on was when women choose to leave the workforce to care for children. So, this is a varying level of a challenge across different economies and markets. Some civilized countries have state-supported childcare, daycare. Others, including the US, do not offer any of that, right? So women are often left to make this decision. Women are historically paid less than men, and women historically take on the caregiving responsibilities. So a lot of women are left to make this decision. Do I stay in the workforce or do I leave the workforce and thus save the cost of childcare? And that's a difficult decision to make. But adding to that, a lot of women don't have the complete information that they need to make an informed choice. Now, whatever choice they make in the end is right for them, and that's fantastic. It should be respected. But the idea here is really women and their families need to be able to access a complete financial picture before they can make a fully informed choice about what to do.
So you brought in your article an example that sort of hit you on the head about the reel, that there was only one woman. Can you tell us about that?
So, a guy that I know posted this speaker reel of him and several other speakers represented by his agency, and they all speak about AI. And I wrote him back and I said, "Hey, this is cool. That's well produced. I like it, but there's one single woman in here, right? And that's really problematic in 2025 when there are lots of women working in this space doing really interesting, cool things, right? One of the most senior people at OpenAI until recently was a woman. And it's challenging because for a lot of women, myself included, if you can't see it, you can't be it. If you don't have female role models, it's very hard to imagine yourself in that place. So just the idea that even again in 2025, women are so underrepresented, and that it translates into how women use the technology. It translates into how the technology is built, right? There are so many examples of this. I also work in spatial computing. And for many years, a lot of the spatial computing metaverse platforms did not allow pregnant avatars, right? And I had a friend who was pregnant at the time, wanted to create an avatar that looked like her, and literally physically couldn't. And in the case of that metaverse platform, I went to them and they rectified it. They were apologetic. They fixed it, which is great. But you wonder about the demographic of who's building that, right? I don't think they said, let's leave pregnant women out of this. I think it didn't even cross their minds in the first place. You
Blind
know,
spot,
yeah, it
basically.
was a total blind spot. I mean, there's an example of Siri not listing out like women's health providers at one point, and Apple was called out for that. They fixed it. Kudos to them for doing that. But again, it was a huge blind spot. And so I think as we think more about this technology, there's going to be more and more blind spots, and that's something that we just need to be paying attention to.
So basically, I'm hearing from you, Courtney, that this tech cycle is no different than the previous tech cycles, although we are in the fourth industrial revolution of
Mhm.
all these technologies are converging, the progress, the acceleration of the pace of progress. Despite all that, we are seeing pretty much the same patterns in terms of a gender gap in AI.
Yeah.
And it's not only who are creating foundational infrastructure or apps, it's also the end users. We see it everywhere. And on the other hand, is there something positive?
I'm not seeing anything that is specifically being marketed to women necessarily in terms of like a product. What I am seeing is that women can use the existing products for really interesting things. And maybe they don't necessarily know how to use it. Maybe they don't necessarily know what they can use it for. Maybe they don't know that it is valid or worthwhile. And I don't want to get into like pink washing, right? AI for ladies, some sort of pink, cutesy, AI with a funny voice or Hello Kitty or something. Like, actually, Hello Kitty AI would be amazing, but that's an aside, right? So I don't know that we necessarily need to build AI specifically for women. I think we just need to make sure that women understand what they can do with AI and how they can use it best, and then build in tools that really create a sense of that solve the asymmetric information problem, right? Like where there's so much information in the world, and what AI does really well is harness that information and distill it quickly. And so helping women and really everyone understand, here are the possibilities, here are the things that we can be building, here are the things that we can be using AI for to make all of our lives better.
So the example that you've used in your first series, which is all about career decision making, illustrates that. And of course, it's not only for women, it's for
Yeah.
whoever is facing a career decision, a caregiver, or for whatever other reason, how to contextualize with AI the problem in a more intelligent way than the myopic way with which a lot of decisions are made.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really about, again, whatever choice you make is your choice, and all those choices should be respected. The challenge is that you're making a choice for the most part without a full and complete picture of information. So what I see time and time again is people who choose to be primary caregivers leave the paid workforce, and they don't think through what the long-term consequences of that are. They think, okay, in the very short term, my paycheck is equal to or less than the cost of this care for a parent, a child, whomever. Ergo, I'm going to just take that cost on myself. What they don't realize is that it impacts, in the US anyway, their social security. It impacts their retirement savings. It impacts their career progression, how much money they can make in the future, right? There are some industries where this is not as big of a concern, right? Where you can freeze your salary and things like that. But generally, right, there will be negative economic consequences. Now, it's fine if you look at all of that, if you get all that information in front of you and you say, you know what, it's more important to me to stay home and take care of my children or to take care of my ailing parent or whomever than it is, even with all this information. And that's a fantastic choice, and one that should be absolutely respected. And there are like larger social structures that need to change in terms of the cost of care and the availability of care, but that's a longer term issue. So for people who are facing this in the short term, who have a baby or a toddler who's about to go to daycare, or an elderly parent who's about to need full-time care or more care than they can provide, right? Then again, it's up to them at the end of the day, and that whatever decision is respected. But they just need to be making a decision with full and complete transparency around information, and that's where AI can come in and help sort of solve that problem.
It sounds to me that this is the type of solution. I look at it as a fintech solution because it's
Sure.
really about financial planning. You have to be cognizant and strategic how you go about it and really understand the consequences. And often
Right.
we make these emotional myopic decisions.
Right. And these are really emotional choices. And I think that's a very challenging thing that a lot of people have to deal with, right? And there is so much emotion around it. It's very hard to leave your kids. It's hard to leave your ailing parent. It's hard to leave somebody you're a caregiver for, right? There is very much that. So I think if AI can be there to provide this very like unbiased, non-emotional information around it, then you can sort of step back briefly from the emotionality and say like, okay, well, here's this. And yeah, how can I plan around this, right? Let's say I want to take a few years and not be in the paid workforce. Can I then double my contribution to my retirement funds afterwards, after I go back? Can I have an agreement with my spouse if I am in that type of relationship where my spouse will contribute more? It's not about like just looking at the numbers. It's about kind of using the numbers to your advantage to figure out a solution that's going to work for
An
you.
optimization. It's an
Yeah.
optimization. If we were to look 5 years down the road with the pace of innovation on
Mhm.
this topic of AI for the gender gap, what would, in your opinion, be a worst case and best case scenario? What do you want to see, and how do you want women to improve their relationship with AI?
I think the worst case is kind of honestly for a lot of women, it's what we have now, where you are working. There's a term called the second shift where women entered the workforce, but they also had to then pick up all the domestic responsibilities. And now what we've seen is this kind of explosion of domestic responsibilities, in addition to women having to work a lot. And most of the women that I know that are working full time in the paid workforce and our parents are really struggling because they're being asked to do so much more. So, what I think we can look for with AI is how do we have AI do that work for us? And it's really about reducing women's kind of cognitive emotional load. So, again, it's not about if you like some parts of that cognitive emotional load, if you really love, managing the school bake off or whatever, then that's amazing. Do that. You do you, be happy. But if you're kind of like, I don't really care about the school bake off, AI can kind of handle that for you. AI can handle all your kids' appointments and the soccer games and the scheduling and all the things that are just kind of taking up a lot of women's I want to say also primary caregivers, right? Many times that's women. It's not always women, same-sex couples, etc. So just to sort of level set that, right? For primary caregivers, a lot of what just takes up their time are these minute little things that add up and add up and add up. So if AI can be kind of just running all of that in the background and they don't even have to think about it or worry about it, then that frees up so much space for whatever it is they want. It's taking all the stuff that's kind of like weighing a lot of people down and sucking up a lot of energy and time, letting that kind of run seamlessly in the background. And then we have all this space and room for other great things to be happening.
Courtney, I'm thinking about this vision that's floating around Silicon Valley about $1 billion company with one person running that company, right? So, if that's the vision, then I guess in a well-balanced society, we should also have the vision of a family that can be run comfortably so the adults can enjoy
Yeah.
their lives, whether they enjoy working, whether they enjoy their hobbies, they were spending time with friends and family. So equally, it's not about only just running businesses, but just running life to make it
Yeah.
so much more fun and efficient and alleviate all these mundane things that do take a lot of energy and can be
Yeah.
handled by software.
Yeah, I mean, could you imagine? So my friend just took her kids on this like amazing camping trip and they loved it. They had an incredible time, but it took a lot of time and energy to plan and put it together, right? And imagine if AI just plans everything for you and then you just get to like enjoy the camping trip with your kids and have fun and go hiking. Like AI will never replace that level of human interaction, right? It'll never replace the joy that you feel going on a hike with your friends or your family or whatever it is that you like to do. But it's all the sort of process and leading up that I think we can kind of start farming out a little bit. And once that gets done, we're going to be able to focus so much more on like what gives us joy, what gives us pleasure. Like right now, so many people are so like overworked and they're bone tired, and you hear this over and over and over again. If we can alleviate that, that's going to be beneficial for everyone.
So burnout from paid work or unpaid work,
Yeah.
we need AI to really change the structure of the economic activity, really, whether it's paid or unpaid, and especially the unpaid. In closing, Courtney, I want to ask you to share with our audience where they can find you.
I'm on LinkedIn. The name of my company is Friends with Holograms. I am part of the Fast Future Executive alongside Effie and a lot of other great folks. We put out a book last year that we co-wrote as a cohort. I also have a book coming out October called The Spatial Race.
Courtney, thank you so much.
All right. Thank you for having me.